Okay. All right. Welcome to curriculum night. I'm not sure if I'm the first one you are hearing from or the last, but I hope you have gotten any information that you need thus far. Before I go through LA10, just please know you can reach out to me with any questions after this or at any time throughout the semester or year. Email right there is definitely the best way. A little bit about me before I get into the class. And I know a lot of the kids I have in LA10, I've had older siblings. So maybe you've had a son or daughter with me before. But I went to Alma for my undergrad and then OU for my master's. There is my family in those photos. Actually, just today, my son and daughter started school, 2nd and 4th grade. Getting up there. And then there's our pup. She's a quarantine dog, Portuguese water dog, about 1.5 years. So LA10 is American literature. It is not a writing heavy class, but we do obviously practice writing. Next year, the kids will take their high school composition class, but this is an ELA as a whole, so we do a lot of different types of language arts. So some writing, but definitely heavier on the reading. It follows chronologically, as you can see, starting the year, excuse me, we actually start earlier than the Founding Fathers. We're starting right now with the Puritans. So even though it was written during the 50s, we're starting with the Crucible. The kids get a kick out of that. And then we work into the late 20th century. So what's nice is it does tend to overlap with a lot of the things they should be learning in their history classes. Little taste of everything, though. Like I said, they do some writing, but we'll also do, as you can see down at the bottom, vocab, grammar, some current nonfiction as well with what's called Article of the Week. We're really heavy on theme and other literary terms. We dig into the analysis and close reading of everything we read. So we provide all of this that you can see on the screen. I'm sorry if my little face bubble here is cutting off some of the titles, but that's our textbook. The textbook's actually called Grade 11. So if you ever see them logging in at home, don't be confused that it says 11th grade. It is an 11th grade textbook, even though it's for LA10. We read The Crucible, like I said, Of Mice and Men, and Great Gatsby. The Crucible is actually in the textbook, though. So the great thing about that is the audio in full is on their online textbook, although it's pretty easy to find audio of anything. General expectations. I know these are the things that kids and parents want to know. I already had this discussion with them, but I'm pretty lenient on accepting some things late, at least for partial credit. It's always better to ask, is what I tell them. The difficulty becomes in a literature class is we'll read something one day and then maybe they'll go home and finish it on their own and we'll review it the next day. So if they're here the next day and they sit through a review, then it becomes complicated. So I had the discussion with them about it's always easier to ask if they've fallen behind and want to jump out in the hall for a few minutes to finish something. I'm usually pretty flexible with that, but just talk. We use websites like turnitin.com to check for plagiarism. Non-negotiables, I don't use that so much anymore. It's essentially grammar skills and writing skills that they really have to have honed by now. We will reteach, obviously, especially after last year, but just basic things like MLA format and run-ons and fragments and things like that we consistently as English teachers see as a problem. Just a lot of practice with that, but it's definitely not non-negotiable. It's a little scarier than it sounds. AOW stands for Article of the Week. That's that nonfiction contemporary reading and responding that I talked about before. And then vocabulary. I think we do about 7 chapters of vocabulary throughout the year. So they're getting some practice with some new words. Extra credit. Again, I talked to them about this as well, but I always like to tell all of you that they can actually come ask me for extra credit anytime their heart desires, and I will find something pertaining to what we are doing. I explain to them that I feel like that's the way the real world works, as long as they're willing to put in that extra effort. The only time I will say no is if they are habitually missing other assignments. 1 or 2, not a big deal, right, in a whole marking period. But if they're missing 3, 4, 5 assignments, then they can't do extra credit. Poor citizenship, it's not really an issue. But if it ever did, then that would be a no. And if it's the last week of any marking period or semester, they can't come to me at the last second and want to make up a bunch of points. It's something they have to kind of be tracking along the way if they feel they need more help. Grading wise, we haven't heard yet about exams, but if we have exams, it will go 45, 45, 10%. The other thing is that participation is really important. I always look at my grade book at the end of a marking period or semester, and I check to see if there's any kids who are like, that 0.5% or whatever, away from that B or away from that A or whatever grade it is I'm assuming they would want. And if that student is someone who had consistently participated, offered to read, offered to lead in groups, things like that, then I will bump up a few points if necessary. Google Classroom is the online system we'll be using. Again, kids got really comfortable with this last year. Weekly plans will be on there, all the electronic documents. That is where they will submit most of the work. I'm not going to say all, because I do want to get some hard copy work, pen and paper, pencil and paper in their hands this year. But a lot of work will be submitted on there. The instructions on how to access their online textbook are on there. That is crucial, because even though we have them in class, it is just a class set. They don't have their own copy of the textbook. And Remind 101 access code is on there as well. So I always tell them not to depend on Remind 101, but it's helpful if I need to communicate something with them at the last second, or if I want to shoot them a reminder for a test or a quiz or a project due date. And I think that is it. So again, reach out to me if you have any questions at all. I look forward to this year. I'm very excited to see them in person, even if it's with the half faces. All right. Have a good evening.